so from rectangular to polar, our key relationships here are that the x-coordinate plus the y-coordinate, the x-coordinate squared plus the y-coordinate squared is equal to the radius squared, and theta is equal to the inverse tangent of y over x. Now, before we start plugging things in, and I heard some good conversation while y'all were doing those problems about making sure that it makes sense, that you know where it's supposed to be. So let's find out where this is supposed to be using the rectangular coordinates so that we can match the polar coordinates to that. -1, +1 is the point midway through the second quadrant. -x, +y, we're in the second quadrant. So let's plug in our x. Let's plug in our y. That's equal to r squared. So -1 squared is 1, +1 squared is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So the square root of 2 is our radius. Theta is equal to the inverse tangent of y over x. Now, we are going to use our calculator, but let's just stop for a second and let's use our trig knowledge for a second. 1 over -1 is -1. That says where is the tangent equal to -1? We're looking at it over here with our picture. Where is the tangent equal to -1? Is that not at 3 pi over 4 or 135 degrees? Okay. Now, I suggest if you're using your calculator, make sure it's in degree mode. You don't want these answers in radians. And you can do it, but look at what it's going to give you. It's going to give you -45 degrees. That is not in the correct quadrant. -45 degrees is here in the fourth. We're in the second. So you'd have to add 180 to that to get the correct answer. Okay, so if at all possible, use what you know about trig functions. It'll save you some trouble. And I don't care, you would look at the instructions to see whether you need to express that in radians or in degrees. Those are the same point. Square root of 2, 3 pi over 4, square root of 2, 135. It just depends on whether it wants degrees or radians. All right, -3, 0. -3, 0. Start by plotting the point. That is on the negative x-axis. I really don't think that we even need to do the calculations. All right, that's a radius of 3, and the angle is 180, or pi. Now, if you're not thinking in those terms, of course you can do the calculations. And you're going to get 3 squared, -3 squared is 9, plus 0 is 9. So when you take the square root, 3 is equal to r. And when you do the inverse tangent of 0 over -3, it's probably going to give you 0 in the calculator, because that's the first place where the tangent's equal to 0. So again, you do need to know where you're at to correctly identify that angle. Or just think through it first. Think through it first. Okay, let's do another one similar to that. 0, 2. 0, 2 is on the positive y-axis. So again, you really don't have to do the work. The radius is 2. That angle is 90, or pi over 2. Now, obviously, these are not the only ways to express these angles. We could do negative radii, negative angles, all that stuff. We're just going to go with the most basic, simple point that we can. Okay, let's do one more that does require some work here. -2, -2. That would be in the third quadrant. -x, -y. Square the x, square the y. It's equal to r squared. -2 squared is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. Take the square root. 8 is not a perfect square. We do want to break that down. 2 square roots of 2. Now, again, let's think about this. Theta is equal to the inverse tangent of the y over the x. That's saying where is tangent equal to 1? That's at our 45 degrees. We're in the third quadrant, so that would have to be 225 degrees. Again, if you just jump to the calculator, which is fine, it's going to give you 45. That's in the first quadrant. We're in the third quadrant, so you need to add 180 to that. Now, all the examples that we have done have been nice, neat angles from the unit circle. It does not always have to be that way. You could have angles that are not on the unit circle, but you still have to be able to put them in the correct quadrant. Okay, you still have to put them in the correct quadrant. So say that this, on this problem that we just did, the calculator gave you 26 degrees. Okay, obviously not from the unit circle, but you still have to put it in the third quadrant. So you still have to add 180 to that to get the correct answer of 206 instead of 26. Okay.